That's the way we'll go.
And here you are, everybody. Hello, David.
Yes. Greetings from paradise. Thank you very much, Harry. I appreciate the amazing introduction. Greetings from Key Largo, Florida and the Florida Keys. Welcome to the Enjoy the Journey Luxury Travel Show. This is our scuba diving episode. We're discussing scuba diving in the beautiful Florida Keys. And I have two very special guests today. I will introduce them quickly, then I'll run down some sponsors, and we'll go right into asking them some questions and hearing their stories. So we have Lisa Mangelia, or Lisa Mangi as we call her. She is the director of the History of Dive Museum in Almirada, Florida. And we also have Joe Weatherby, and Joe is the Artificial Reefs Man Extraordinaire. And he's the director of Artificial Reefs International Preservation Trust. So, and first I want to thank our sponsors for these wonderful shows. We have Vic Figueroa from Keys Smartphone Repair. Vic is the man. Any issues with your tablets or cell phones, give Vic a call. We also have Chip Bell, author, the Jake Sullivan series, chipbellauthor.com. Think of James Bond Meets the Caribbean is all what Chip's books are all about.
Yes.
And we also have Michael Marinelli, my man Michael. I appeared on his real estate show numerous times on this network.
The official, designated by whomever's in charge of designating, the real estate conch, the real estate conch in the Keys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he's a wonderful person. He's at realestateconch.com. We also have Jim LaPointe. He's a fellow Pirates on the Water like myself, the Jimmy Buffett Parrot Head Club, the Upper Keys. And talk to Jim for the best mortgage rates in the Keys. I think they're down to about negative 1% now or something like that.
About negative 1%, and down goes the property values in the Keys. What is it when you're on a down market? It's time to buy. It's time to talk to Jim. It's time to talk to Jim LaPointe to get the money to buy it, right?
Just like the world of travel, it's a buyer's market in real estate.
Yeah.
And definitely Michael can help you find a house, and Jim can help you finance it. Destination Florida, Florida Keys and Key West, the in-room 5-star resort magazine of the Keys. It's a wonderful magazine, definitely.
Yep.
And also Monroe County bail bonds. Come on vacation, go home on probation. Wonderful.
Oh yes, I understand business is very good right now too. So don't you worry, they're there for you if something's happening. In your. And
then also I thank Dale Clemens, our new sponsor with the Health Genie. Health is a very important topic right now. So
there is go to that site because there's a free checkup right there online. It's free to everyone, and it's got some. Let's put it this way: you can do a virtual checkup of any kind of situation you have. Just answer some simple questions. It'll give you a virtual readout of what you have. And we'll hook you up with some telemed if you need it. So that sponsor we're extremely excited about, David.
Yes. So before I begin with our guest, I want to tell you about my story I've told before, but very briefly, is because scuba diving is a very important part of my life and is what brought me to the Florida Keys and Key Largo. When I became certified in 2002, I was hooked, and I said I need to do this more, and I wanted to become an instructor. And actually, my 100th dive ever was only in 11 months after being certified, and was in Key Largo, a night dive, signing up for the instructor class, which I then took 2 months later, and I bought a house at the same time.
Awesome.
So when I moved to my house, I actually moved here and stayed here, didn't pay rent or stay at someone's place. I stayed at my house to get my instructor card in 2004. And I was an active instructor for 15 years. And through the dive industry, I met both our guests. First, Joe back, I think, 2004 in DEMA, in the Ship to Reefs initiative. Then I met Lisa along the way doing some of Joe's events and DPVs on artificial reef races and things like that, I believe, Lisa. And they're not only great people and they're very passionate to do, but they're also, I'm very thankful to say, very good friends of mine and people I really enjoy hanging out with. So first off, it's a loose discussion, guys, but when you chime in, tell about your story, what brought you to the Keys and about yourself, and then we'll talk about, diving and obviously the museum, Lisa and Joe, definitely your current projects and how people could help. And remember, our audience is international. So our references have to be kind of like, very clear about what we're talking about, like where things are located. So, and also, we're here to also get support for you guys. So tell us how we can help you today. So first off, Lisa, what brought you to the Keys?
Hi, Dave. First, thank you for having us on your program today. It is always a pleasure to do things together. Dave is an active member of the History of Diving Museum, so we appreciate your support. What brought me to the Keys, like you, I got certified with my family a little bit longer ago when I was in high school, and we used to travel to the Keys, tow our boat down here, rent a house, spend a week down here, come down for a couple weeks over the summer, and like you, and the bug bit in the early, I was still in high school, and went to the Navy recruiter because I was going to go in the Navy and be a Navy diver. Research was kind of my focus. And at that time, it was the late 70s. And the recruiter said, "Oh, we appreciate your enthusiasm. They don't let women on boats." And that kind of burst that bubble. So I went back and I was talking to my scuba instructor, and he's like, "Well, why don't you become an instructor until you decide what you want to do with your life?" So it's his fault. I became an instructor and moved down to Miami. Have been working and associated with Underwater Unlimited ever since, and taught diving full-time for a couple of years, then got married, had kids. Through the course of my professional career, got introduced to the museum by writing for Dive Newswire, and immediately fell in love with Dr. Bauer and the work that they're doing down here. At that point, Dr. Joe had already passed away. And so I volunteered for the museum for about 5 years, and then the executive director position came open, and all the stars aligned, and here I am, almost 6 years later, enjoying it as much as the day I walked in.
Has it been 6 years you've been executive director?
August will be 6 years, yeah.
Unbelievable. I mean, time flies. I mean, I remember you took that position going, Lisa Monti from all of Joe's cool things that we do. I'm like, that's a great choice because she's a passionate diver, and you give some new ideas, I thought. And you have. I mean, you really turned that place around as far as their events and their social media and their marketing.
Look who's here. Joe's here.
Joe's on video. Hey.
What's up, Joe? How are you, man?
Coming to us from the Big Fluffy in Key West.
Direct from the Big Fluffy down in Key West. I give you heart of Christmas, but face of Halloween. They tell me I have a face for radio. I too thank you for having us on the radio show today, and thank you for the interest in what we're doing. I will say for your listeners that I've had the pleasure of working for many years and on many weird underwater projects with both Dave Hartman and Lisa Monti. We've worked through underwater racing and art projects, and our main interest at Artificial Reefs International and CRB Environmental out of Miami, which are the companies that I represent, are cleaning and sinking large ships for artificial reefs to support recreational fishing and, of course, our favorite, scuba diving. We've had a long series of successes with these projects, and I've been diving all over with Dave Hartman and Lisa Monti, and including the Vandenberg and Key West and the Mohawk on the West Coast, and we've worked all over the world. We have a couple of big projects planned right now, and Lisa is leadership, part of the leadership on one of the real big ones, and that's Isla Mirada, Florida, in the Florida Keys.
Nice.
Home of Radio A1A.
Yeah, I figured you guys might recognize that address. Several more going as well.
Joe, it's good to talk to you again since our meeting at the Breakfast Nook there in Key West, and your introduction to the Parrot Head world. I wanted you to be introduced properly. I didn't mean for it to go live on the radio, but it did. And I haven't even checked in with you since. And David is a Parrot Head. I don't know, Lisa, are you a Parrot Head? Are you aware of what goes on with those folks?
I am aware of what goes on with those folks. I adore, Jimmy Buffett's music, but I don't know that I'm a card carrying parrot head.
Oh my gosh, David, we have someone that maybe needs an official membership into the virtual Parrot Head Club. It cost all of $20, but you and by the way, David, I don't mean to say that, but that was an important meeting, and thanks to David Hartman, it introduced Joe, myself, and those individuals that put that into motion, so that that nation of parrot heads can come again to Key West and to the aid of something that Key West needs terribly, in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say, if I might, at that breakfast and over that weekend, Dave had introduced me to you as well as to Billy, the new president of the Parrot Heads in Paradise, and they've agreed to help us move forward with the project. They helped us with Vandenberg. They were big players in the all the clubs nationwide.
Wow, this is a news story. I hope our news director, Dr. Bob McClellan, is listening. If he's not, this copy will go to him, and we'll put that out in a press release if you'd like.
Yeah, I want to square away with Billy. I will say, unfortunately, I need a couple. Well, not unfortunately, we're all going through the same thing. Due to the COVID crisis, we are delayed with some of the approvals that we need. Everybody's verbally agreed, but well, I wanted Billy to announce that as well with you guys. So we're trying to get the last blessing on this thing.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
And that's Joe. That's for the new dishes for the Vandenberg.
For the dishes project, yes. And fantastic. Billy's very enthusiastic. I've been talking to him, but there's just been there's not a lot going on right now as far as government approvals due to they don't want to meet. They have to agree and have to give permission, and they don't want to meet given the social distancing issues. Key West is being very compliant with all of that.
Okay. No, that's a good update. I appreciate that. So Joe, we have people on this show from international. They may not know about what the Vandenberg is and your role in that. Can you tell us about the Vandenberg real quick, and what was your role in sinking that?
Well, I will say Vandenberg remains the second largest ship ever sunk. Excuse me. I'm okay, everybody. That's
his usual cost.
Second largest ship ever sunk is an artificial. It was sunk off of Key West almost 11 years ago, with a lot of help from Parrot Head clubs across the country. And Vandenberg has become a very popular dive site, as I don't have to tell Lisa Mongi or Dave Hartman because I dive it with them all the time. It was an $8.5 million project, and it went the sinking event. It took about 10 or 12 years to get all the ducks in a row to sink it, but it's been a smash hit, home run as far as environmentally as well as economically, and we're planning another one for Isla Mirada as well as Miami and Marathon.
Fantastic. And then I know the Almirada one, you had meetings recently that those are going well, right? So far you've had approvals.
Yeah, these projects are big. And if you've ever dealt with like some of the government agencies, they're very concerned with doing things right. And in the case of the Vandenberg being in a marine sanctuary, we had 18 different government agencies that had to approve all this, and then you raise the money and do the work. So it's the biggest bowl of alphabet soup you ever ate in your life.
Word salad. Yes.
Congrats on all the projects. It's exciting to have more wrecks off the Keys here and the coast of Miami. So definitely
they're really good for the environment. And there hasn't been a lot of good news from the oceans. This is a real bright spot. And it's something that's, it's people have been doing it for a long time, and it works very well, and it works every time. So the fish love it.
Fantastic. So Lisa, again, we have an international audience here. So tell people about your museum, where you're located, what's going on at the museum these days. Obviously, these days you're not open, but when things reopen, what goes on at the museum and why should people stop there?
We say don't drive by, dive in. We are at mile marker 83 in Islamorada, a little bit south of Key Largo, Tavernier, before you hit the Marathon area, and then of course 83 miles from Key West. But we're an international collection. So this really speaks to your whole audience. People are amazed, whether they're a diver, and that transcends commercial diving, research diving, recreational diving, free diving. All of those different communities have something represented here. We have pioneers, both men, women, international people, Hans Haas, who was very instrumental in creating rebreathers, back in the 40s. So, and then we have cultural visitors who are in the Keys. A lot of the dive boats send people to us when their trips are canceled, but we are open 7 days a week from 10 to 5. So if you go out on a morning dive boat, have lunch, come to the Islamorada in the afternoon, and then hit one of the local restaurants for dinner. Or if you want to sleep in, come here in the morning and walk through the exhibits, have lunch, and then hit that afternoon boat. So it's an added value to any diver or any cultural enthusiast who's in the Islamorada area and the Keys area while they're on vacation. And we have a 3-minute introductory video. They come into this beautiful research library where I'm sitting in today, see the collection that goes back to the early scientific journals in the 15 and 1600s of improbable dive machines, when it's all about man's quest to explore under the sea. And as people learn as they're coming through, how rich that history is and how far back it goes. So again, divers, non-divers, go through the exhibits. Not one person has come out of the exhibit doors who isn't amazed by the rich collection that's back there as far as the various topics. There's 14 different galleries, exhibits, everything from breath hold diving, commercial, marine biology, all the way into the abyss. And then, Dave, you asked me what's going on. We have a changing exhibit room, and that changes out twice a year. We just did a dive into art, the beauty of recycling. It was a great, great project with the local art guild, and 7 different schools had built sculptures out of marine debris and reef debris, beach cleanups, recycled materials. And that was a big hit. And we closed that actually the last day that we were open to the public in March. So our next research is a featured exhibit called In Depth, 15 Years of the Diving Museum. We opened in 2005. So go ahead.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you. We're excited. Unfortunately, we can't share it with as many people as we would like to. But we're going to be ready when the doors open, and we can. So this next featured exhibit is going to talk about the development of some of the different artifacts, how they came to acquire them. The Bowers, when they got a lot of their artifacts, it was before the internet. So you literally had to go to antique stores, or they traveled to Europe and they hunted down a niche book dealer in the middle of a small town to find everything that they did. So that was quite an adventure in itself, and some of that story will be told. And then a little bit about museums and how you acquire artifacts, how you decide what gets put on display in your core exhibit, what you can use for educational outreach. And, so a lot of those things are what we're working on behind the scenes, of course, with safe social distancing. And a lot of that research you can do online. A lot of the interpretives we don't have to be on site to do. So that's what we're kind of doing in this downtime.
Wow.
Fantastic. I actually helped donate some items to your Spiegel Grove exhibit a couple of years ago.
Yes, you did.
I had some artifacts from the Spiegel, and I forget how I acquired them, but I had some artifacts from the Spiegel that you guys had. And that was a great display, and I was there for the opening when Stephen Frink spoke.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
I hate to interrupt, but you had reminded me at about this point, getting towards the middle of the show, to remind you that we have an open chat room in the Facebook pages and on the on the YouTube pages, that there are questions waiting for your guests. The live questions. I don't know if Joe's ready for a couple of the questions he may be getting here from some locals, but
fire away. I've answered some pretty strange questions from locals over the years.
Wait a minute, let me get my finger on the trigger here so I can put Joe's picture up here. Oh, there he is.
Oh no. Face made for radio. I apologize ahead of time.
Oh, no worries. It's sponsored by Fantastic Endeavors, a luxury travel advisor named Dave Hartman. It was my opportunity, but
I've been on some of his fantastic endeavors.
Yeah, they are fantastic indeed.
On the previous, someone asked that. Then I think they must have been involved with placing a plaque on the previous antenna. That there were some plaques placed. Could you they're just asking questions about more information about the parrot head's involvement in the antennas that are there. They're symbolic, aren't they?
Well, they were actually part of the ship. It was a ship into a spy ship in the early 60s.
Yes.
By the Kennedy administration. And the ships that are on the vessel now were very important to the function of the vessel. It tracked missiles and moonshots but it was a kind of a covert ops spy ship.
Yeah.
The Parrot Head clubs, I would say, I think I'm right when I say this. I'm not looking right at the data, but I believe taken together, Parrot Heads in Paradise and the clubs were the biggest portion of the private sector funding that we raised.
Wow.
And it was all the clubs. There's a whole series of metal plaques on the top of the ship that were where the Parrot Heads names, the club's names and their logos
really
were carved all the way through pieces of 1/4-inch steel and welded onto the ship.
The Parrot Head Club names, like Tampa Bay Parrot Head Club, the St.
and
Pete
their
Club.
logos. There's a whole bunch of them. That's the good news.
Wow.
Here's the bad news. What happened was, I didn't want to put more plastic on any plastic on the ship.
Right.
Plastic has to come off of the ships.
Exactly.
So I thought I was outsmarting Mother Nature by designing these burned see-through metal plaques, and the ocean has completely covered them over. So when we talked to the clubs about it 12 and 15 years ago, we said, well, eventually they're going to become little chia plaques, right? With the reef. Well, they're all little individual reefs that have oysters and sponges and all kinds of.
Gosh, that's an artwork waiting to happen. Each one of them.
Well, they're not plaques anymore. They're pieces of living reef, and the animals have fully colonized them. But you can't read the names anymore.
Well, do you have a list of the names? We could locate that, couldn't we?
I do. I don't have it right in front of me, though.
No worries.
I probably should have been better prepared. But we were the guest a couple of times at the meeting of the minds down in Key West, and I got to stand there and got a giant check from the leadership of the Parrot Heads, and I probably partook a little vigorously in some of the celebration of it that was going on down there in Key West. I've been here a long time, and the Parrot Heads we've worked with no better groups than the Parrot Heads. They've really been, they like the environmental stuff. They like the water stuff. And they had a real sense of history. And there's a lot of good groups down here, but the Parrot Heads are certainly among the best. And That's why we look to them. What the old dishes took a beating during Hurricane Irma.
Yeah.
So, and they were so they're bent and they got moved around a little. We're going to put new, stronger, big steel dishes on there with the help of the Parrot Head Clubs. And we're going to make a real big deal about it, just like we did the last time.
We're going to put feathers on it. We're going to put and flock with it. You know, we're going to flock with it with some feathers on it and see what happens. Right, David?
Oh, yes. It's going to be a grand affair, and those dishes are sent off and delivered to the Vandenberg.
I think David would wear a chicken suit if this came off. If we raised $1 million, he would wear not a parrot suit. But...
That's a good idea.
Sorry.
I'd like to see that, I think.
Whatever I wear, it's going to be festive because that's the way I roll. If it's a good event, I'm always festive.
I just remember radio says you're not supposed to drop turkeys out of airplanes, but just so if parrots fly, we're not dropping any parrots out of airplanes or anything like that.
It's a very nice WKRP show reference. So. Harry, do we have any questions for? And by the way, people who are listening, feel free to chat us questions, and if we don't get to them here, we'll get to them after the show and email you back.
Well,
definitely at some point, Joe and Lisa, towards the end here, we're only halfway through the show, but definitely give your preferred contact information for people to reach out.
Well, that was one of
or get involved in what you're doing and support what you're doing.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions to Lisa was. People are, they say they're reading more books lately. Is there a reference to some books that the History and Diving Museum recommends to people so that they can read about it and then come visit it, right?
Well, we don't have a book on the museum itself. We actually have some historic books and different topics. We have a web store. Our website is divingmuseum.org, and on that website we have a web store. We actually have a vintage book sale going on of some of these old historical books, and everything from travel and medicine and early dive training, some of the early U.S. Navy diving training manuals that, people just like to look through. If you're home, now is a great time to be reading. Yeah. So I encourage people to kind of go on the web store and look at some of these vintage books and, see what topic catches their fancy and pick something up to read.
Is that the case in video as well? Someone just said, are there some videos on YouTube of the History and Diving Museum?
We do have a YouTube channel. We're kind of resurrecting it. It's got some educational outreach things. So all they have to do is look at Diving Museum, and there is a YouTube channel. During this time that we've been closed to the public, Emily, who is our community outreach coordinator, has been doing videos up on every Wednesday. So we've got teachers that are tapping into it, using it for studies for their kids, for homeschooling. We also have just dive enthusiasts. We've got some activities that are on our website that are crossword puzzles, word searches, just things like that to do while you're at home and you can't get into the water. So think about it as much as you can.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Fantastic endeavor.
And this is the time for this, since we're all doing this, virtual things, is that people have more time on their hands. It's a great time to take advantage of, hey, I saw that History Dive Museum. Let me learn more about it, and that way you can get involved personally and check out the museum when we're allowed to go back and visit it. So that's fantastic. Very good information, Lisa. And Lisa, while we're on topics of getting involved, I believe if you haven't mentioned it yet, just remind people that you have a virtual presentation coming up, correct?
We do. Actually, it's here you go. It's a little flyer on it. But Andy DeHart, who is in charge of the husbandry over at the Frost Museum. I think, Dave, you and I might have been at his reef presentation about a year or two ago, but he's got such a background in marine projects and what he brought to the Frost Museum. But he's going to be talking Wednesday night. It's typically our free Immerse Yourself presentation. This week it's going to be virtual on a Zoom platform, and he's going to be talking about Alaskan salmon sharks. which is a really fun kind of unique. I've been diving for 40 years. I had no idea there was such a thing as a salmon shark.
Lisa, would you hold that up again? I did not get a chance just to carefully there. Oh, there you go. Immerse yourself.
How's that?
Beautiful. Wednesday, April the 15th, 7 p.m. Everybody can see that. Perfect.
Right. So what they need to do is contact the museum so we can give them the code to get into the Zoom. So they can either email programs at Diving Museum or just pick up the phone and call us. Our number is 305-664-9737. If we're not on site, we have an answering machine. We're checking it and we'll get back to you.
David, if we may, is there a possibility you could speak to her later about us rebroadcasting that on just picking up the Zoom link?
Absolutely.
Good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good idea. Yeah.
Okay. Well, duh, we're on a Zoom link here.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, anyway, David, there is one more question other than the fact that Joe is not looking very well. Could we call any help for him or something?
No, I'm fine. I'm just out of the air conditioning right now.
Yeah.
Other than that, and I think this is from the talent agent for Pup Morse, the scuba cowboy.
Oh.
That he wants to know, can he help us when we bring it back to do the, dive back in, recovery back, whenever it starts coming back in, could he come perform on our radio and TV broadcasts? Would that be possible? Will everybody on this call be involved? Joe, do you know Pup Morse?
I don't. But
my goodness.
You know what they say, loose lips sink ships. Start talking.
Okay. Pup, Lisa, would you describe Pup, if you wouldn't mind? Would you be able to?
Pup is the trop rock king in the diving community. He's at all the major gatherings, conventions. I actually ran into him at a dive event in out of St. Louis, Missouri. I was on vacation to do a treasure hunt at the Bon Terre mines, and he was the talent that was there for the weekend. So we bumped into each other, in Missouri of all places. So it was kind of fun, but he's a great character and he brings a lot to the diving community. He's got some great songs that, speak to all of us, and all the parrot heads would love his trop rock music.
Crossover. We call that.
Hey, I'm all in. I'd love to work with him.
Yeah, he's great. He's fun. He's a character.
He is wonderful, and he's actually performed for Radio A1A, David, before the BD, before David, back at Old Smuggler's Cove in Isla Mirada.
Wow,
he performed there on the air, and Pup came down free of charge. We just put him up and gave him a big lobster dinner, and he performed for us that evening. I may even have that old recording. Would that be something, if I could find that recording of Pup Morris in Isla Mirada? It was 7 years ago. But in any event, he, I think his agent has the message, and you guys, he would be perfect to reintroduce, open the keys back. He would be perfect. Yes.
It's a really, this is going to be this event and this project in Isla Mirada are going to be in this time of especially some of the news about the ocean, and some things are doing better than others, but it's time to help the ocean once we're done helping ourselves out of this. And this is right in the wheelhouse of the Florida Keys. And so I think very appropriate for Trop Rock, and Jimmy Buffett has helped with all these projects as well with the Vandenberg project. And we'd welcome him to be a part of what we're doing.
Fantastic. That's awesome. So Joe, tell people how to get a hold of you if they have questions, and also how can people help out with your projects, and what kind of support?
Well, we are moving forward right now. They can contact me at joewdiver@gmail, not Joe Diver, Joe W Diver @gmail.com.
Nice.
But we are seeking final approval to hold the permits and the title by the city of the village of Islamorada, at which point we will be publishing the website of the Islamorada Artificial Reef Association, and then we've got some money to raise. So that would be really helpful. And again, to spread the word, and there will be some merchandise, some things coming online that, you know, we want to make sure we're on solid ground with all the regulators first. And that we are undertaking to do that now. And then when we're getting in the home stretch and, you know, looking around for the proper ship and making sure all the permits are in place and all that, we'll be raising money. That's what we'll need. So I guess we'll have to have a party.
Hey, wait,
yes.
David, could I
Yes.
could I ask these two one more question from the A1A Media folks?
Go ahead.
I think I've got a picture of the guy that could really head this up on the screen right now. His name is David W. Hartman. He is but really,
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence that he may be there to connect some of our media connections and the Parrot Head connections and now the Pup Morse connections and the travel connections and all those types of things where we can start sharing this information in a real-time situation like this, where the people can ask questions. But as far as the travel and travel planning, he advertises that you can even get a butler on his tours. You can even have the linens changed every hour if you want it. There, Joe. That's better than the Navy.
Well, I told David after the last time I helped him out, I wasn't going to be anybody's butler anymore. No, I'm teasing. Dave Hartman, I've been on a lot of trips with Dave Hartman.
There you go.
And Dave Hartman has, how long is it now, Dave? 15, 20 years, has supported everything we've ever done. And we like the fact that we get the opportunity to work with Dave. And I'd get on a bus and go with him, or a cruise ship or an airline, anywhere he wanted to go that wasn't cold.
Well, A1A is at the disposal of Mr. Dave Hartman to produce an event of whatever he would like and use our good offices. This is an official announcement that we are on board 100% wherever and whatever we can all do. I would suggest we announce it on weekdays with Wilson one morning, live. And
the morning show.
His morning show is one of our most popular all over the country. And this is an international announcement. So you mentioned something about that, didn't you, Dave? That this is...
Yes. International audience. Worldwide.
Thank you. That's very kind of you, and we mean that. Welcome aboard, A1A. Yeah. Absolutely.
Definitely. And it's all about connection, but definitely when it comes down to the fundraising time, and also for promotion of Lisa's events, like, you know, tomorrow night we'll rebroadcast her virtual event, and we may do a live broadcast when you actually have your the immersions are once a month, normally in person, right where she's sitting in that wonderful library at the museum. But when it comes down to fundraising, you know, event management is what I do as part of my business, and then promotion obviously is with Perry's a big piece of that. So we'll definitely, you know, definitely get together and figure out what we could do together to make these things happen. Because I'm all about artificial reefs. I mean,
is someone copyrighted?
Say again?
I said, has someone copyrighted the name Immersions? Immersions. That is
I'm not sure if you could copyright immersions, but it's an idea.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I could not help it but to hear the words that a lot of people are longing to be under the water again. Once again, we have the ability to provide some HD video streaming if we can put together that programming where they may be able to, but it needs to be overseen by experts. David, I'm into another subject. Excuse me. Didn't mean to go there. But this is that type of platform, though. David, your show is going to be a place where this can be. You're going to be having reports from Carnival Cruise Lines, from how we're going to recover to put the people into hotels to go back to the Vandenberg, right, Joe? How do we get to all that?
Hey, welcome. Yeah. Well, when they open them up, we're going to need everybody in the country to get in line and show up one day after the next for the next several years. For the Vandenberg, for the marathon wreck yet to be named, and of course for the big show dog project in Alamorada, Florida.
Yeah, I understand. We've got the USS Alabama has been purchased from Mobile, the Historical Development Commission there, and it's going to be turned upside down on the reef, right? No. That's
we don't say that stuff.
That's fake. That's fake news.
Yeah,
well, if there's something that I can interject about the rec program as well, Joe and I both sit on the Sanctuary Advisory Council for the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary, and we've been working with the sanctuary for years. And the health of our reef is really what we're both passionate about. And there's a lot of things environmentally that are going on, biologically going on, and by sinking these artificial locations, artificial reefs, you're really giving some stress relief to the natural reef to give that coral time to grow back and to get healthy again without having quite the impact from the number of divers that are on it every day. You're also giving the fish an artificial habitat where they can start finding shelter and schooling and giving people something to swim and look at. So there's a lot of economic benefit. There's a lot of environmental benefit, and it's really to help our resources that are out there. And I think everybody is seeing through this COVID crisis that the environment has really appreciated the break from the human interaction of the factories and the smog. And, I think I read something recently that they could see the Himalayas for the first time in 10 years because the smog was reduced. And we're finding less and less marine debris that's floating from fishing, from blowing off of boats or cruise ships, whatever it is. There's less coming up on the beach during this last couple weeks. So an artificial reef is just going to be one more thing to help.
Totally agreed, 100%. And that's the idea, is that people don't realize if you're not divers, if they're not aware of the artificial reef's purpose, it's multifaceted, but taking pressure off the reef is usually first and foremost. And our reefs here, obviously, you guys, we appreciate you sitting on that committee. I mean, our reefs here are under significant pressure. I mean, Irma wasn't a friend to the reefs at all. A lot of the reefs has had a hard time recovering, and now we're dealing with multiple years now of some kind of virus on the reefs. That really knocked out the hard coral. So anything that could help take the pressure, both from the fish and just the activity of the tourism, which we support tourism, is appreciated. So artificial reefs is a wonderful thing to the community and to the environment, which is fantastic. But artificial reefs can also be a little fun too, thanks to Joe and these artwork projects he does.
Thank you.
I actually, and Lisa's part of this too, because Andres Frankie, I think his last name, or Andres Frank, is an Austrian studio photographer who creatively takes pictures of wrecks, then goes back to his Austrian studio in Vienna, and he'll take some models and he'll superimpose them together and blows up these pictures and put them in special plexiglass and magnets. And they had I think 2 different showings on the Vandenberg. I helped take down art from the Mohawk on the west coast of Florida. But absolutely wonderful projects. And I believe Lisa, she took off. I think, she's going to get a picture.
Sorry, actually, I have a sample in my store I was going to bring and show you.
I knew where you went, so thank you.
Go get it.
That a girl, Lisa. You can see him at thesinkingworld.com.
Thank you.
Thesinkingworld.com. Pretty cool stuff. Thanks for the plug, Dave.
Oh, I was waiting to say that because I really enjoyed it. And again, maybe we can restart the conversation, because I took Andres down for a great photo shoot on the Spiegel a few years ago with Carly and Leslie Adams. And then unfortunately the discussion, obviously this takes fundraising and funds. And the discussion kind of died out as far as doing a Spiegel project.
Yeah.
Lisa's holding up a picture of what.
So this is a sample from the Mohawk.
Hold on, give me a time to get on it. There we go.
So that actually has growth on it, because that looks like it has growth. So that actually sat down in the Mohawk.
Oh, wow.
And then they took it back up. He actually sells the artwork, and we sell prints of the artwork, both regular, the artwork itself, and also the pictures get sold too for premiums for the ones that actually have growth on them, the full size pictures.
David,
and I would say right here too that the artwork, it's for sale at if you like this stuff, it's for sale both at the History of Diving Museum. You can get your own little piece of this one-of-a-kind stuff, and you can also, it's also available at 7 Artists Gallery down in Key West. But I would say the Parrot Heads, the idea is, this is what happened to the plaques that you guys all gave us. We welded them on, and then they just turned into little standalone artificial reefs all by themselves. The animals are living there happily now on your logos.
Nice.
That was the plan,
nice.
right? I think it was
probably, that was the plan.
Yeah.
Now, Joe, how many with Andres? How many ships does artwork show on?
Well, we put them up for 3 or 4 months and then take them down, or the ocean will chew them up. Basically, we have to let them just far enough. So often I'll take Lisa with me, and she decides when there's enough growth on it. We work together a lot, and but he's done it. We've either shown the art or put the art in the water in the Maldives, Barbados, Captiva, Key West, and we've showed them on the ferry boats on the East River in New York, and Capitol Hill Oceans Week, in castles in Belgium, Andreas's gallery in Vienna. We got 3rd place at the in Monaco at the Monaco Art Week in Monaco. So it's and the press all over the world has run pictures and stories. Mexican GQ magazine and Chinese Elle magazine. I didn't know there wasn't Mexican GQ magazine, but it's all very welcome stuff, all very positive, all very spectacular.
So I had the opportunity to dive the Vandenberg when his artwork was down. I think both phases of that project. That was so cool. I have underwater pictures I'll post on my Facebook page of that. Then I also post pictures of myself with Andres, just a wonderful gentleman. He hung out, he stayed at my house, and we went diving the Spiegel, and I really got him some great angles. So hopefully we can get that project going again one day. And just a really tremendous craftsman as far as what he does. Then I also got to help out with the takedown parties of the Mohawk project. That was a lot of fun. So that was my first takedown event of actually taking the artwork back up.
How many of you have ever seen the Oriskany? How many of you were at the Oriskany sinking?
I dove it, but I wasn't at the sinking.
I was at the Oriskany sinking, which I believe stands as the largest one of them, and has been an unequivocated success. Whatever the word is, it's been a success off Pensacola. The diving world has opened up there like crazy. Destin, Panama City, all of those people are diving the Oriskany now. It's beautiful. Yeah,
that's a home run project too. Yeah. Just like Spiegel Grove and Vandenberg, very, very big success.
If we could get the Enterprise, that would be good, because our news director served as a commander in the medical division. I think he was a head surgeon on the Enterprise during the Gulf War, Dr. Bob McClellan, Commander Robert McClellan. And he's going to be our spokesperson for this project as a naval veteran. So we've already discussed this, and he and his dog Admiral Halsey are ready to go on the project. David, what do you think about this? This has been an amazing show, and we'll be replaying it. We'll be replaying it a lot, so hang in there.
No, and I appreciate the listeners and watchers out there. I appreciate the questions, excellent questions, and I appreciate even the shameless plug by the what's his name again, the scuba cowboy.
Pup Morris.
Yeah, no, I know he's a scuba cowboy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So appreciate hearing from his PR person. That'd be a great opportunity. And
Shh, I'm his PR person.
Yeah, you're his PR person now.
Did y'all get that? Y'all didn't catch me doing that? Y'all are really bad.
Hey, it's nice. It's nice to work with. It's nice to work with a pro. We really appreciate, and quite frankly, we need these kinds of opportunities to reach out to your audience, who we kind of, and I don't want to take anyone or anything for granted, but we feel that due to the last kind of work we did together with Parrot Heads and some others, we feel like the ocean people are our allies baked in. We're helping the ocean, and that includes your audience.
You got that right. Yeah.
Excellent.
Thank you, Joe.
And people have to remember about scuba diving in the Keys, since we have an international audience, for those who haven't been here before, no passport required. Some people are afraid about what flights are going to look like in the future, what international travel is going to look like. Well, no passport required. And honestly, for most people, for diving and cheap way to get dive gear, no airline required. You can drive here from anywhere. We are fully connected to the mainland, and when visitors reopen again, we expect them in droves to come dive our beautiful reefs, all the way from the Upper Keys down to Key West, the Vandenberg and Key West, and Key Largo up here, and Almirado releases that. And we have wonderful wrecks and wonderful reefs. And the same for Joe down in Key West. It's known for the Vandenberg, but they also have Western Sambo Reef. They have some other smaller wrecks. It's just a fantastic vacation to take, and we have unbelievable diving. And obviously Joe and Lisa too are working on keeping our current reefs wonderful for people to enjoy, but also working on projects like artificial reefs to give divers somewhere to go long term down the Keys. And it's phenomenal what you guys do. Definitely appreciate having you on the show. We're going to start our wrap up because it's getting that time. I did have a couple of questions for Lisa that I had in general. So I'm a active member of the museum. Do you have to be a member to attend the events, especially the in-person events?
You do not have to. The Immerse Yourself that are on the third Wednesday of every month and have been happening since 2005 are free and open to the public. Because of the current situation, they're going to be on the Zoom platform. So in this case, it's limited to 100 people. You need to contact the museum so we can give you that code. We're going to record it and rebroadcast it after the fact. So that's going to be going on. We have other events that if you're a member, Dave, I think you've participated in some of our Dive into History events, and usually there's a discount for the members. If it's, $35 for the public, it's $30 for the members. And of course, all those membership dollars go to help support educational outreach and, doing the videos and preparing the activities for teachers to use with their kids and things like that. So we greatly appreciate all of our members. And actually, we've got a Corona kind of request that asks people to renew their memberships and, because that's going to help us in this downtime. Because obviously we don't have admissions. We get thousands of visitors a year, and like everybody else, we're missing our visitors.
I know. Don't worry, they'll come back. We love our visitors in the Keys.
Yeah.
And Lisa's event again is tomorrow night. If you want to